Hey there, folks. Jane Oliver, ready to dive into a global issue that's not getting enough attention.
We're facing a baby shortage. For years, we've been bombarded with warnings about overpopulation. Turns out, people aren't having as many kids as they used to. In many parts of the world, birth rates are plummeting.
Let's address the myth of overpopulation. Yes, the planet has a lot of people.
But the narrative that we're running out of space and resources is outdated. Fewer babies today mean fewer workers tomorrow. Fewer workers mean fewer taxpayers, fewer innovators, fewer people to care for the aging population. It's a domino effect, and it's not pretty.
Now, before you panic, let's talk solutions.
Some countries are starting to realize they need more babies. They're looking at ways to encourage people to procreate, to sweeten the deal of parenthood.
And that brings us to the robots. As the population ages and there are fewer young people to care for the elderly, guess who's going to step in? Yep, robots. Let's dismantle this overpopulation myth. We've made incredible strides in technology, agriculture, and resource management. We can produce more food than ever before, and we're constantly finding innovative ways to utilize resources more efficiently. The problem isn't necessarily too many mouths to feed, but rather an unequal distribution of resources. A healthy economy relies on a growing workforce that contributes to the tax base and supports social programs. But when birth rates decline, that balance gets thrown out of whack. Fewer babies today mean fewer workers tomorrow, and that translates to a shrinking tax base. This isn't just an accounting problem, it's a societal one. The effects of declining birth rates are already being felt around the world. Countries like Japan, Italy, and even China are grappling with the consequences of shrinking workforces and rapidly aging populations. We're facing a global demographic imbalance, and it's time we start talking about it with the urgency it deserves. Imagine the pressure on those single children, the ones who were born under the one-child policy. They're now adults, often saddled with the responsibility of caring for 2 aging parents and maybe even 4 grandparents. The Chinese government is grappling with the economic consequences of this demographic shift. Demographics aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent real people, real lives, real dreams. The one-child policy led to countless forced abortions and sterilizations, leaving behind a legacy of trauma and loss. China's aging crisis is a stark reminder that demographic trends have far-reaching consequences. Japan has the distinction of having the oldest population in the world. This demographic shift, often referred to as the silver tsunami, is the result of low birth rates, long life expectancy, and a culture that's not exactly known for its open-door immigration policy. For years, Japan has been averaging around 1.4 births per woman, well below the 2.1 needed for population replacement. A shrinking workforce means fewer taxpayers, fewer consumers, and less overall economic dynamism. Imagine a healthcare system buckling under the weight of an aging population with fewer young people to care for them. The Japanese government has tried various tactics to boost the birth rate, but so far nothing seems to be moving the needle. How does a country facing a demographic crisis like Japan's address the challenges ahead? One word: robots. From robotic nurses to automated factory workers, Japan is increasingly turning to technology to fill the gaps left by a declining population. Robots are being developed to provide companionship for the elderly, assist with household chores, and offer a sense of purpose and connection. Italy, known for its delicious pasta and stunning architecture, is facing a demographic crisis. Italy has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, consistently hovering around 1.3 births per woman. Young Italians face economic uncertainty, lack of affordable housing, and limited job prospects, making the prospect of starting a family seem like a distant dream. To understand Italy's baby bust, you have to delve into the country's cultural DNA. The rise of individualism, the pursuit of personal fulfillment, and the changing role of women in Italian society have all contributed to a decline in marriage rates and a preference for smaller families. Italy has been plagued by slow economic growth, high unemployment, and a rigid labor market that makes it difficult for young people to find stable, well-paying jobs. A shrinking population means a shrinking workforce, a shrinking tax base, and a shrinking economy. The Italian government has tried to incentivize births with financial aid and family-friendly policies, but so far, these efforts have yielded limited results. Italy faces a stark choice: adapt to its demographic destiny, or find a way to reverse the tide and breathe new life into a nation on the brink. Now, let's turn our attention to the good old US of A, the land of opportunity, the melting pot, the nation that seemingly defies all odds. We've got skyscrapers, superheroes, and enough pop culture to keep the world entertained for centuries. But even the mighty American eagle can't escape the gravitational pull of demographics. That's right, folks. Even in the land of supersized everything, we're facing a baby bust. Now, before you start panicking about empty playgrounds and a shortage of future taxpayers, let's be clear, the US isn't facing a demographic crisis on the scale of, say, Japan or Italy, not yet anyway. We've still got a relatively young population compared to many developed countries, and our birth rate, while declining, hasn't plummeted off a cliff yet. But here's the thing, demographics is a slow-burning issue, a bit like that pot of chili you left simmering on the stove. It might not seem like a big deal at first, but leave it unattended for too long and you'll be facing a burnt mess. And trust me, cleaning up a demographic mess is a lot more complicated than scrubbing chili stains off your favorite apron. See, one of the things that's always set America apart is its history of immigration. We're a nation built by immigrants, a melting pot of cultures and dreams. And for decades, immigration has helped offset our declining birth rate, injecting youthful energy and diversity into our workforce and society. But here's the rub. Immigration, like most things in life, is complicated. In recent years, the political climate around immigration has become, shall we say, a tad heated. Building walls, closing borders, and demonizing immigrants might make for catchy slogans, but they don't do much to address the underlying demographic challenges facing the country. In fact, they might actually exacerbate them. Restricting immigration might seem like a way to protect American jobs and culture, but in reality, it could have the opposite effect. A shrinking workforce means fewer consumers, less innovation, and slower economic growth. And let's not forget the moral imperative. America has always been a beacon of hope for people around the world, fleeing persecution, seeking opportunity, or simply yearning for a better life. Turning our backs on that legacy would not only be short-sighted, but also deeply un-American. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, or rather the economic anxiety that's fueling much of the demographic debate. See, one of the main reasons young Americans are having fewer babies is simple. It's expensive. Like, really expensive. Think about it. The cost of housing, healthcare, education, and even just putting food on the table has skyrocketed in recent decades. Meanwhile, wages have stagnated and good-paying jobs are becoming increasingly elusive. In this economic climate, is it any wonder that many young people are delaying parenthood or foregoing it altogether? The American dream, that cherished ideal of upward mobility and a better life for your children, is starting to feel out of reach for many. And when people feel economically insecure, they tend to have fewer children. It's a pattern that's played out throughout history, and America is no exception. So what's the solution? Well, if I had a magic wand, I'd be accepting a Nobel Prize instead of hosting a satirical news show. But there are steps we can take to address this looming crisis. Addressing income inequality, making housing more affordable, and reducing student loan debt. Embracing immigrants as a valuable asset and creating a compassionate path to citizenship. Investing in families with affordable childcare and quality education. Children are our future, and we need to create a society where they can thrive. Because remember, folks, a country without children is like a party without cake. Now, before we descend into full-blown demographic despair, let's talk about the glimmers of hope, the whispers of change echoing through the halls of power. Yes, governments around the world are finally starting to realize that babies, those tiny humans they've often overlooked in their economic projections, are actually pretty important. Some countries, desperate to boost those dwindling birth rates, are resorting to measures that would make even the most cynical among us crack a smile. We've got cash bonuses for new parents, tax breaks that would make your accountant blush, and enough government-sponsored date nights to make Cupid jealous. It's like they're trying to incentivize baby making with all the subtlety of a supermarket clearance sale. But hey, desperate times call for desperate measures, right? The problem is, these quick fixes, while well-intentioned, often miss the mark. You can't just throw money at the problem and expect people to magically start churning out babies. It's like trying to jumpstart a car with a dead battery. Sure, you might get a spark or two, but until you address the underlying issue, the dead battery, or in this case, the economic and social factors hindering parenthood, you're not going anywhere fast. And that brings us to the elephant, or rather the robot in the room. As countries grapple with shrinking workforces and aging populations, automation emerges as a solution. Robots are here to take care of us. Imagine robotic nurses assisting surgeons, self-driving cars transporting the elderly, and AI companions providing comfort. It sounds like sci-fi, but it's becoming reality. Let's acknowledge the potential benefits. Robots could alleviate healthcare burdens, provide companionship, and boost productivity. But ethical dilemmas remain. What happens when robots replace human connection? When algorithms make health decisions? We must consider these questions before handing over the keys to the retirement home. So, here we are, folks, standing at the precipice of a demographic revolution. The choices we make today will determine the shape of our world tomorrow. Will we embrace bold solutions, or will we cling to outdated notions of family and society? Will we harness the power of technology for good, or will we allow it to exacerbate existing inequalities? The challenges are real, but so are the opportunities. We can choose to create a future where families are supported, where work-life balance is valued, where communities are inclusive, and where technology complements rather than replaces human connection. This isn't just about babies, folks. It's about creating a sustainable future for all of us. A future where we can all thrive, regardless of age, background, or whether we're made of flesh and blood or circuits and code. It's time to ditch the doom and gloom narratives and embrace a more hopeful, more inclusive vision of the future. Because remember, folks, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create. So there you have it, folks. The global birth rate crisis, a slow-motion train wreck that's been chugging along for decades, and we're finally starting to hear the warning whistles. We spent years, decades even, fretting about overpopulation, about too many mouths to feed, too many cars on the road, too many people competing for a slice of the pie. But while we were busy building walls and arguing about resource allocation, a far more insidious threat was creeping in. Not enough people. We've toured the world, from the ghost cities of China to the aging villages of Italy, from the robot-filled factories of Japan to the economically anxious households of the United States. The symptoms are everywhere. Shrinking workforces, strained social safety nets, a growing sense of unease about the future. This isn't some dystopian sci-fi movie, folks. This is the reality we're facing, and ignoring it won't make it go away. The good news is, we still have time to change course. But it's going to require a fundamental shift in thinking, a willingness to challenge long-held assumptions, and a commitment to finding solutions that work for everyone, not just a select few. For too long, the narrative around population has been driven by fear. But what if we flip the script? Embrace the future with hope and possibility. Create a sustainable, equitable world for all. Move beyond old debates. Start a nuanced conversation about our future. Support families, balance work life, strengthen communities with diversity. Use technology to enhance human connection. It's about values, not numbers. Rewrite the story, put people at the center. The future is ours to create.